Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to IsoNation and the 20th episode of our Leaders Insights series, which is rather exciting. Can you believe we've done that many? Today, I am joined by Linda Ling MBE and Director of Fleximobility. So hopefully we're going to get some lovely viewers to join us, Linda, and they might even comment and ask some questions. We would love that. And also I would like to ask our viewers to share the stream as well. So if you're in any business networking groups on Facebook, etc., just share the stream with those. And give us a thumbs up and some love hearts as we go along. And we're going to be catching up with Linda about how her business and her other business involvements have been working during the last 12 weeks of lockdown, and also the sort of changes as lockdown's easing this week with the opening of non-essential shops, etc. Things are sort of changing, the landscape's changing again. So Linda, thank you very much for taking part. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you do? And while you do that, if I look down, I'm just going to be sharing our interview on Facebook as well.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Linda Ling, and I'm Director of Fleximobility, which is a specialist vehicle leasing company aimed at the wheelchair accessible vehicle marketplace. I've been involved with the industry for over 30 years now. And as part of the industry, I also have a role as Secretary General of the Wheelchair Accessible Vehicle Converters Association, which is the trade association for that niche of the automotive industry. And I'm Secretary of the European group as well. So quite busy.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That intro as well, and I can already see we've got some lovely comments and people that are watching from all over the UK and maybe even in America as well. So if you are watching, do just pop us a comment, say hello, say where you're watching from as well, because we'd love to include you in the live stream. So we are sort of 12, even maybe 13 weeks now since official lockdown in the UK. Can you remember back to when it began over three months ago, and what it was, which was your OMG moment, the sort of realization that there was something happening that was going to have a big impact, obviously on people's lives individually, but also in that business sense on your business? What was your kind of moment of, oh my goodness?
Well, we were hearing things on the news, weren't we, about what was going on in China, and it all seemed a long way away at that stage. I had to decide whether to take a flight to Amsterdam on the 12th of March to go to a European organisation meeting, and it seemed okay to do that. So off I went. The airports were fairly empty, more empty than usual. And the only precautions I did was to just wear my gloves all the time that I was in the airport. At the meeting, there were people from Germany and the Netherlands and Italy and France and the UK. Nobody was really talking about it very much, or not at all worried about it, certainly. But by Monday the 16th, we were starting to talk about how possible it would be for our business just to put it in tick over mode for a few months. So it just shows how quickly things did escalate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember I made a trip over to your offices actually just, I think, the week before official lockdown, and it was very much, well, we could just sort of carry on, see how it goes, keep coming into the office. And then it was announced on the Monday, actually it's going to be safer for people who can to work from home. And then you made the to work from home, I believe.
Yes, I did. We weren't part of the lockdown as a business because we're part of the vehicle rental and leasing industry, and we were allowed to continue as an essential service to be able to provide vehicles for people that needed them. So we were allowed to stay open, but we took the decision to stay open with a skeleton staff, and I decided to work from home because I've got vulnerable people in my own family. So that seemed the best thing for me. We also had an at-risk member of staff, and I'd sent her home on the 16th and said, we'll see what happens, because the staff safety was uppermost in our minds at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we've got some great people interacting with us already, which is lovely. I'm just going to say a few hellos. We've got Alison. Hi, Alison. Catherine from Bracknell. We've got Sharon in Newbury. We've got Rachel from Northumberland. We might know those people. Hello. Hi, Mark. Hi, Sarah in Newbury. Christian, Gemma. They're all giving us a wave, which is lovely. Do comment, guys. And the Pipers are watching in Twickenham. Give us a wave, comment, and ask any questions as well as we go through. I'll keep an eye on that stream. So you've already mentioned then a couple of things from your initial reaction and some precautionary measures that you took with a member of your team, and then also you're thinking about your the safety, obviously, of your customers as well, and how you were providing your service. So were there any other precautionary measures you had to put in place while you were still operating that side of the business?
One of the areas of concern was the fact that we move vehicles around the country all the time. So we were very careful to make sure that our drivers didn't come into contact with too many people. And we gradually reduced the times that we were going out and about on service calls and changing vehicles around. Because people were started not to be using the vehicles as much as they had been, we didn't have to do quite so much of that. So, for example, MOTs were extended for 6 months, weren't they? So there was no need for us to organise for customers to get their vehicles MOT'd and serviced in that time. So things worked to help us to reduce the activity, and then we were planning to just put our own precautions into place.
Yeah, of course. And I mentioned, obviously, we're over 12 weeks sort of into this situation now. Things are starting to ease a little bit more, and I sort of can't believe it really, but even that non-essential shops have reopened, so the high streets are, they are open now. And we've actually popped down to our office a couple of times and have noticed more and more people out and about, people that are trying to, I guess, help with get the economy going again, and also people that have probably missed going out and missed being a bit of retail therapy even. So I guess for some of your customers, and particularly maybe some of your more vulnerable customers, they've not been able to go out for the last however many weeks and months, and now might be the time that they would like to do so. Are you finding that?
We're starting to get a few more inquiries about helping people to get different cars for themselves. Most of our customers have been shielding, so some of those are still shielding at the moment. So it's very, very early stages for people that haven't already got a car from us to start thinking about whether they ought to either buy a second-hand vehicle from us or start a leasing package with us. And we're very conscious that we need to give them a lot of reassurance about that. In our industry, we are very hands-on with our customers. So we do personal demonstrations where we get up very close and personal with our customers when we are helping put their wheelchair into the back of the vehicle. We're fitting the seat belt round them. We're making sure that they're comfortable, that they're in the right position in the car, that they can see and they're going to be able to enjoy the trip. And because that's the main reason for going out, isn't it? To enjoy the ride as well as when you get to the other end. And so we need to make sure that the wheelchair is secured safely in the vehicle. Now we're going to have to do that as a sort of third-party demonstration. We're going to have to show the person that is going to be their driver how to do it, then step back and then watch to make sure they're doing it properly. And we might need to go over that several times just to make sure that that's safe and comfortable for everybody and that everything is in place. So we've just got to rethink, you know, the way that we do things, and also to be able to reassure people that the drivers are going to be in PPE, everything on the car that they're going to use and touch is going to be sanitized. We're going to make sure that we're not over touching bits of paper. You know, we're going to try and do things smarter with with electronic transmission of documents and that sort of thing. So it's really just saying to people, don't be afraid, you know, to get out and about, to think you don't have to be stuck in anymore. You can have a car and have a trip out. Only this week, we've just taken a lovely inquiry from somebody that has really been fed up of being in lockdown. They're based in London, and they're just going to hire the car for a week and just go out for a few days now that a few places are starting to open up, like, you know, National Trust and various other places that have got wide open spaces, because that particular lady, who I believe has got multiple sclerosis, she hasn't been out at all for all those weeks, not even in the fresh air. So it's really, really important for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important as well to communicate the and build confidence with the people that you're going to be dealing with. I think that's going to be the key thing for you, isn't it? Really, in the same way that actually with more people wearing masks out and about, and you're seeing that builds a confidence level to people that are nervous and worried about the current situation. And in the same way, you need to make your customers really feel confident in your processes, so that they realize that they can take on a vehicle with all of those things that have been thought about. And it's actually also these sort of little intricacies, isn't it? It's the things that we take for granted. So you're saying, you know, when your drivers go and they're demonstrating the vehicle, or they're showing the customer how to utilize it, how to get somebody safely into the back of the vehicle, how to put the seat belts on, all of those things that we've totally taken for granted for years and years and years and years. You've now got to think about and put these processes in place because of COVID-19.
And of course, I mean, we're all the same, you know, in our own cars. I know when I go to the shop to do my click and collect, you know, I've got gloves on. You know, I'm very conscious when I come back from holding the trolley, what am I going to touch on my car? You know, am I going to use an anti-back wipe? Am I going to wipe everything down, you know, each way? I was also very conscious that, you know, you grab the seat belt. Well, that's made of material. A lot of the guidelines are talking about just, you know, make sure that the hard surfaces are wiped down. Actually, my hand's been all over that belt as I pull it round me to, you know, to lock it in, and that's an essential part of the car as well. So, you know, you've got to think about that. We've just got to think about so many things that we haven't had to consider before, aren't we?
Yeah,
I mean, we've one of the areas that we've had to look at in terms of staffing is our drivers. Now, we had been thinking for a little while about how we bring our drivers back from doing a delivery, for example. Normally, they're not the trade plate guys that are down by the motorway. They're allowed to come back on the train, and then we go and pick them up from the station. So we've had to rethink that, because we don't really want to put our drivers into any more risky situations than absolutely necessary, and there's absolutely no need for them to be on public transport. So we've brought forward an idea of using another rental company, so that we've got a one-way hire car to do those return trips in. And we've started that this week, and it looks as if it's going to be really successful. So, you know, I'm really pleased that, you know, something that was an effort to safeguard our drivers will also end up making us a little bit more, you know, slimlined down. You know, it's much more satisfactory all round, really.
Well, that's a good example of something that you've been considering previously, and like you mentioned there, you've brought it forward. So that's what we found when we were speaking to other business leaders in different industries all across the UK, that this situation has actually forced some of the decisions to be made for us, really, hasn't it?
Yes, that's right. My fleet manager has been looking at some of our paper systems that he's been dying to get rid of for ages, and is using the COVID situation as a good reason to get on with that. And so we've got more systems, you know, electronic now already. So, and I think that'll only continue, really.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few more hellos. We've got Kate Mayo, hello to you. Linda Hughes, hi. She says, hi, girls. That's lovely. And then we've had a couple of comments from Alison, brilliant resolution to the problem, and Rachel, and also provide employment for others too, which is a win-win all-round situation. So that's fantastic. I wanted to ask you about, obviously you've got your own business, but like you say, you work with the WAVCA committee as well, and that's something where you're all over the place, aren't you? So presumably you used to meet up face to face periodically for your meetings. Have you been utilising the many wonders of the video calls for these meetings now?
Yes, we have, and actually they've been remarkably successful. We've had some technical working group meetings with the engineers in our industry. We've been Zooming and using other technology with Teams and everything with the DVLA, with huge numbers of people in the room for presentations and discussions about COVID-19 situation and how we start to progress some of the procedures that have been held up. We've got a situation currently where the DVLA, although it's one of the services for the whole of the UK, happens to be based in Wales. So they've been in lockdown longer than the UK. And for some of the services that aren't straightforward, and our industry uses quite a lot of services that aren't straightforward because it's not the general motor industry. Those are very much hands-on systems that are run by small teams rather than electronic. So, for example, if you were to buy a new car today, your dealer would just register it through an electronic system, which is now called RAV, used to be called AFRIL, and your vehicle will be registered in a matter of minutes. Wheelchair accessible vehicles and other converted vehicles like trucks and freezer lorries and motor caravans and other vehicles that are multi-stage build vehicles, they have to go through a different registration process, and very often they have to go through a different testing regime before they're allowed to even apply for registration. So there's been a backlog on testing, there's been a backlog on registrations, and we're now trying to lobby government and to have some good discussions with both the DVSA and the DVLA to make sure that we can get vehicles registered for people. So that's just a little snippet of things that I do in the background of my day job.
Yeah, well, absolutely, because like you say, as you've been providing the sort of lease and rental side of the business, but now as things are easing and the potential for sales of the vehicle, this is just one of the things that perhaps we take granted if we're not accessing a vehicle that has had any type of modifications, and we wouldn't realise that there is much more of a manual process involved there, and obviously there's going to be a bit of a backlog for those people, which is just one of those things that's come out of this, isn't it?
Well, it is, because each industry is claiming that they've got priority over another industry, because obviously everybody wants to get their businesses back up and running as quickly as possible. So we're all trying to vie for top place. We're all trying to make a case for our customers. So, for example, the motor caravan people are trying to make a case for their customers based on their customers' mental health, and they need to get out and about. But actually, in background, you've got the situation that the motor caravan industry only has a very short sales period in the year, and that's the summer. And they know if they don't get going soon, they're going to miss the boat for the whole year. Or miss the caravan for the whole year. So, that's everyone's vying and saying, my industry is more important than yours. No, mine's more important than yours. And we've just everyone's got to make their case. And, civil servants and government have got to decide who they are able to prioritise and get things through for.
And actually, at the DVLA, are they back into work? Do you know at the moment? Is it limited resources? Or?
It's limited. It's limited. Yeah, they've probably got about, as we speak today, they've probably got about a third of their workforce on site, and it looks as if it won't be possible to get everybody. Everyone's got space issues, haven't they? If we've got to give more people more space within our offices, then we need bigger offices. So it all depends if people need to work on site or whether they could be working at home. With some secure systems, people can't work at home. So we've got some businesses that are thinking, oh, that's great, I can sell all my real estate now and have everyone working from home because it's all been so successful. But in other industries where you've got to be there, then space is going to be an issue.
I was just wondering, on another sort of more personal note for you in the business, I know that you travel quite far to your office. Has working from home been working for you? Is it something that you might consider to do a little bit more of, with the ability, obviously, to liaise with the rest of your teams really clearly? Have you enjoyed it? Have you had any extra challenges whilst you've been working at home? As you know, I've got two little ones, so that can be a challenge. What challenges have you faced, or has it all been easy sailing working from home?
Well, I've actually not found it as difficult as I thought it might be. I did relax into it quite well. I don't miss the hour there and an hour back that my journey is. And that is starting to feel, I have to admit, it's starting to feel a little bit of a waste of 10 hours a week when you add it up. So yes, I'll be thinking about that very much, and trying to make the most efficient use of my time. Although I think going forward, the challenge for all managers is how they do keep in touch with their teams and how you don't lose communication. You can obviously, you can manage people, by direction and by cajoling and by emails, and you can do meetings and everything. But I think we need to be careful that we don't lose not just the water cooler moments, which are important, the social interaction and the activity there, but also when you're actually physically in a meeting, there's that there's that energy, and we don't want to lose any creativity. This is going to be a real time when we need as much creativity as we can possibly get to get ourselves out of these difficult times, and to be innovative, and to make the best of what we've got going forward for all of our businesses. So And I think that's the challenge, is how we do continue to engage with people and keep that creativity going, and the personal relationships as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can just bounce off the energy of seeing somebody in the room. I must admit, I'm quite surprised how much I do get from a video call, like we're chatting now, or like on meetings. I think they can be quite personable, much more than I think we thought. I think we thought video calls were a bit of a pain, that the IT might break down, that you couldn't really hear people clearly, that it was awkward, all those sort of negative things. I think we've been reassured that we can use this technology to communicate and socially as well, like we mentioned off air. But also, like you say, just that personal connection with people, being in the room with people, feeding off energy. Christian and I have been down in the office a couple of days this week, and again, just sort of getting that energy and that environment, and being in a different environment out of the home has really helped us.
You did ask me if there was any downside.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I'm very conscious that we are all still running our homes, and life goes on, doesn't it? So what I've found that I've had lunch more, I've made lunch more, and we've had to sort of cope with different regimes within the household, and all of that sort of thing. So but you mentioned about the using technology for meetings and things. One of the benefits is I've been listening to one of my grandchildren read every night. Well, I would never have thought of doing that before. And now Zoom and the like is not such a mystique anymore. I think there's a real value in it, in keeping in touch. It's been, it's opened my eyes. But, one thing that we also do have to bear in mind for people, suddenly the click and collect appointment is actually as important as the business meeting that's in my diary, because if I can't get out to get the food at that particular slot, then we're not going to get fed. So that becomes much more of a challenge, rather than just being put into a corner at weekends.
Actual diary management within lockdown, whilst you're working from home, it's almost been trickier than in normal life. We've felt the same. You almost do need to book in your click and collect, or doing a bit of exercise, or obviously when your meetings are as well. That diary management side of your video calls, and treating all of your calls like actual meetings, I think is very valuable and very, very important. I think that's lovely that you've been doing some reading with your grandson, Freddie, I believe you said off air. That's really lovely to hear. Similarly, I've been enjoying a pregnancy yoga class once a week with Soul Sanctuary. I chatted to Laura a few weeks back. That's been really helpful. That's been a really helpful resource for me whilst we've been in lockdown, and given me also some sort of social interaction with other people that are going through obviously a similar situation to what I'm going through as well. And I think that embracing that, like I've had friends say, why haven't we ever done this before? Because you have friends all over the country, for university or from home. And, you can end up even in different countries, and we haven't necessarily all come together and done these big video calls and chats until this time. So when we're talking about the positives of the situation that we found ourselves in, and there are many positives as well as awful outcomes as well. But I think we need to sort of focus on those positives and try and think, as things ease back into a sort of normality, what things do we want to continue? Like we've been enjoying video calls socially, which we wouldn't have done before. We would have just had a normal phone conversation and lots of WhatsApps.
I do think we need to tell people why we do that. because you actually said that I'm your mother.
No.
But as well as the rest of my job titles, I also have the honour of having that one too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, I wanted to come on actually to something that I'm very proud of you for, being your daughter, is that you were honoured in this year's New Year's Honours List, which we rather excitedly found out just before it went like national. Just after Christmas, we had a lovely family gathering when Linda, my mum, announced that she had received or was going to be receiving an MBE. Now, it was planned that you would be going, or that we would all be going to the Palace on the 2nd of June, which has sadly just passed. And unfortunately, due to this current situation, we couldn't go. So have you had any update on receiving your MBE? This is what we all want to know.
Well, when I first heard that I was being honoured with an MBE, I was naturally as surprised as anybody, because it did literally come out of the blue. And it was given to me for work with people with disabilities, and that's on the citation. And that gives me a great deal of pleasure, because I've been working in the industry now for 35 odd years, and I've always strived to put the customers and the disabled people that we work with absolutely first and foremost. And some of the activism and the lobbying that I've done in the past for improving standards for wheelchair accessible vehicles, and then eventually getting them into European legislation, which was a big thrill for me to be able to do that. That has been so important all the way through the years, and to have that acknowledged is a tremendous thing. So as far as the receiving the MBE is concerned, I've had the nice letter that told me that I was going to receive it. I've had a few press interviews at the time. I then waited until I got my dates to go to the Palace. And as you said, Rachel, it was booked for the 2nd of June. So, trying to think about when was the perfect time to buy the outfit and the hat and, what we'd all be wearing and doing on the day. And then, of course, this situation happened, and it's been postponed. So I've had a nice email from somebody's equerry, telling me that it's been postponed at this stage, and I really do hope that we do still get our day in the Palace, and that I don't just end up getting it in the post.
That would be so annoying.
It would be. It would be. But yeah,
even without this situation, you wouldn't know whether it would have been the Queen or another member of the royal family that would have been presenting you, do you? You just, we might find out near the time.
Yeah, you have the date, and then it depends who's on duty that day, I think.
Yeah, because we're sort of hearing a bit of speculation in the news that, the Queen may have to sort of take a big step back for a while. So if things do start happening again, it might be that it might be Prince Charles, that's doing more and more, obviously royal duties and things like that, or Prince William, or who knows. Yes. But I'm still very excited. Well, I was actually quite looking forward to finding an outfit whilst I was pregnant with a big bump, because that can be quite fun. But the baby will definitely be here before your MBE, sadly for you.
Yeah, it looks like it.
But again, we weren't sure when everything was sort of unfolding how long this would go on for. So you're thinking back in March, you're thinking, oh, June might be okay, July might be okay by July, and now obviously loads of major events and things like that. They're not even thinking about doing anything until next year, until 2021. So these things will hopefully come to fruition in the near future.
Yes, they will. They will.
Cool. So I just wanted to, we've covered that actually. Having a little look to the future, and I know lockdown is easing, but we do still have restrictions in place. So, the bubble that Boris Johnson announced a couple of weeks ago was a bit of a funny one, because it sort of only really was helping out people with only one adult in the household being able to mix with another. And I think we all were hoping that there would be a little bit more leniency with our families and being able to meet up. What do you think, or when do you think things might ease a little bit on a kind of personal level? And also, what is it that you're missing at the moment, apart from the obvious family and friends? What will you be looking forward to enjoying again in the future, whenever that comes?
Well, I don't think it's possible to even guess when the easements are going to come, because we've got to wait and see, haven't we? We've got to wait and see how this little bubble thing works, and whether there's a spike in infections and that sort of thing. And I think for many of us around the country, it's quite difficult to actually imagine what it's like in some of the areas where COVID-19 is really prevalent. We don't see much of it. I mean, obviously we hear of it with the care home scenario, because we do supply care homes, but we can't imagine how long it's going to take to ease things, and what the next concessions for us are likely to be. I mean, I don't think there's anything that I'm looking forward to more than seeing my family and having hugs with everybody, because that has been the hardest thing, I think, is the lack of personal contact for many people. The actual physical thing of being able to to share and show love and empathy towards each other in all sorts of different circumstances. And we saw that remarkable picture from the health minister, just having put his hand on somebody's back, just to encourage them. And that was a bit of a whoops moment for him, but that's what we're all programmed to do, isn't it? Isn't it?
Definitely.
Somebody's.
I'm a very tactile person, and I find it hard, even like you say, even in sort of business scenarios, let alone with family and friends. It's almost been harder when I have managed to see somebody close to me, to see them and not be able to be normal with them and give them a cuddle and a hug. That's almost harder than not seeing them at all, really.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I mean, personally, I feel so sorry for all of the businesses that rely on people being close together. The entertainment industry and the hospitality industry, and goodness knows how they're going to recover. And probably some of them won't recover. But for my own personal likes and hobbies and everything, I can't wait to go to the theatre. I should have been going for my first visit to the Royal Opera House a few weeks ago, and that was cancelled. And I should be going in a few weeks' time to see Imelda Staunton in Hello Dolly, but that's been cancelled. So you're looking at everything and thinking, oh, am I going to be able to do that? But we've just got to wait and see, because this thing is bigger than any one of our little needs, isn't it, really?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I was waiting for you to say theatre then. Me too. But there's been some nice shows that they've put on, haven't they, on YouTube, given access to some shows, which has been great. And also, you know, we must try and support the arts and anything that you're sort of passionate about really at the moment that you're missing. We need to sort of try and support either our local cafes and local businesses that are struggling, or, you know, like I say, the theatre and arts industry. We've got a couple of lovely comments that I'd like to share with you before we round off. Just going to backtrack. We had the lovely Claire Bingham, who's up in York, says we both look very glam, which is nice. Thank you, Claire. Rachel's agreeing about the energy levels involved when you're meeting somebody actually in person. It's often more wearying due to the concentration required. Yes. Yeah. And then we've got Katie's totally agree about the video meetings and calls have turned out better than we anticipated. Yeah, absolutely. Diary management, the actual daily routine, Rachel has had to change quite considerably. Yeah. And Katie here is saying that her church meets on Zooms, which is great, Monday through Friday. And that's been a really good resource. Diary management again. Steve Moller, you might know, Linda, I'm not sure. Like the idea of grandchildren reading to you, must try that. We have 7. Well, how many have you got, Linda?
About 12 or 13, I think, at the last count.
And also somebody's mentioned perhaps, you know, looking forward to celebrating a big birthday that might be coming up later in the year.
I'm still half hopeful of that one. Who knows? It's in October, so we may have eased enough to get together on that particular time. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, what just seems strange at the moment is the fact that, you know, shops have reopened, that we're working towards pubs reopening, even if it's those ones that are providing a garden and things like that, yet still not being able to have that interaction with close ones that, you know, have probably been following all the rules and being very strict on their guidelines and staying home where possible. So to round off, well, I think we've mentioned so many things already, but to round off, is there what would you say has been the most positive kind of outcome for you of this time, or for the business? You did mention off air that you've had perhaps a little bit more time, not so much rushing around with the day-to-day. What would be your sort of final thoughts?
Yeah, for me personally, I've had more time to think about the business. You know, they always say that, you know, if you're running a business, you spend as much time on it as in it. And it's very often the case that sometimes the day job takes over and you don't give enough time to thinking about how the business should develop. I'm certainly having a lot more time to consider that and looking forward to a really good future for Fleximobility and all the other things that I'm involved with, really. You know, as always, you know, as I've said, it sounds corny, but, you know, our customers are at the very centre of what we do. And I think in these lockdown times, many of us have had a glimpse of what it's actually like for some poorly and disabled people that can't get out and about, that are very often trapped in their houses with little social interaction. And we've just had a small taste of it. If you imagine that that is how some people's day-to-day lives continues to be, you can understand how much being able to get out and about and visit nicely accessible places that is easy to take a wheelchair into, that's easy to walk in on crutches, you know, that's got automatic opening doors, or is a wide open space with some beautiful things to look at. You know, we often find that when we do a test drive, most people want to go to the garden centre for their test drive, you know, because they know that they're going to be able to, you know, have a look at some nice things. And usually it's all on the flat, and there's going to be automatic doors, and that's nice and easy for them. But, you know, I think, you know, just take a moment to think that some people have actually been in lockdown for longer than we have in many ways.
Yeah, I think that is actually a really interesting perspective to look at it. Like, and obviously, I've been involved in your business and industry, or known about it for quite some time, and even in my younger years have helped out. And I think, you know, you always put the customer first, and I've always learned a lot from you in terms of your business dealings. And I think that's absolutely right. You've always tried to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and imagine what that must feel like. And actually, that's, you know, what you've just summed up there is you know, is that scenario. You know, imagine being stuck indoors, which we have been for, you know, the last 3 months, and how much benefit you must get from suddenly being able to go out in a vehicle, go for a drive. Yeah, it's always must be rewarding for you to help customers in that sense, and especially, you know, coming out of lockdown a little bit now, there'll be some more people that you can help. I've just had Hannah has made a few comments, and she thinks she might have a question. So let me just look down through here. Hi, Hannah. She's a director of a global education company. Says huge congratulations to you on your MBE. Different schools are following different education procedures to educate children. How do you feel special needs children have been accounted for in the delivery from state and private schools, due to disability or perhaps lack of ability to use modern technology, such as switch commands to control the computer from home? Do you have any experience in liaising with that?
No, I don't have very good up-to-date experience about that, I'm afraid, Hannah. But I can see why you're thinking along those lines. Obviously, we've had to be really mindful of any children that haven't been able to access the fullest of the educational offerings that have been available, you know, for a variety of different reasons. And yes, you're right, children with a physical disability or other special needs, I just hope that someone has been keeping an eye on what they are able to access, and also how difficult it has probably been, how doubly, triply difficult it has probably been for parents with a child with special needs to be at home full time with them, possibly without as much help as they would have had under other circumstances. I think many of us have got a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, absolutely. We do need to round off now because I'm just checking the time, but I've checked a last comment from Katie in California, is that China is back in lockdown. Do not relax restrictions. We think it can't happen here, but it has. We must really tuck into isolation. Well, thank you for sharing. Sorry, I cut over you then.
No, I was just saying thank you, Katie. And thank you to everyone that's taken the time to look in this afternoon. And if I know you personally, doubly thank you, and hope to see you all soon.
Well, absolutely. Thank you to Linda for joining us. I really did enjoy that. I've been trying to convince you to come on and do a Leaders Insight with me for quite a few weeks now. So I'm glad that you finally agreed.
Yes, good. Thank you.
And thank you everybody for watching. Do like and share and comment. Thank you for participating. Hello to everybody around the UK and around the world. Thank you for supporting IsoNation, and we will be back soon. Bye-bye for now.